The café was quiet, filled with the soft clinking of cups and low murmurs of conversation. Alina moved carefully between tables, her eyes lowered, her voice barely above a whisper whenever she spoke. Most customers barely noticed her, and those who did often forgot her presence within seconds. She preferred it that way. Being invisible meant fewer chances to make mistakes. That evening, rain tapped gently against the windows when the door opened, and an elderly woman stepped inside. She looked lost, her eyes scanning the room with quiet uncertainty. When a waiter tried to speak to her, she didn't respond. A few customers exchanged glances, assuming she was confused, and soon she was left standing alone. Alina hesitated for a moment, then gathered her courage and approached her. Instead of speaking, she offered a gentle smile and gestured toward a table. The woman watched her closely, then slowly nodded and followed. When it came time to order, Alina grabbed a pen and napkin, carefully writing down simple options and showing them to her. The woman's face softened with relief. She pointed, smiled faintly, and even let out a small, silent laugh. For the first time that evening, she didn't look alone. As Alina served her tea, their eyes met again, no words spoken, yet something meaningful passed between them. A quiet understanding began to form, one that neither of them fully realized would soon change both their lives forever. The mansion felt cold despite its grandeur, every corner echoing with silence and authority. Alina stood near the entrance, clutching her small bag, unsure if she truly belonged there. The staff whispered among themselves, casting doubtful glances her way. To them, she was just a cafe waitress who had somehow stepped into a world far beyond her place. The sound of a car pulling up outside broke the tension. Moments later, Adrian Hale walked in. Tall, composed, and carrying an air of power that made the room feel smaller. His sharp eyes immediately landed on Alina. Confusion flickered across his face, quickly replaced by suspicion. "Who is she?" he asked coldly. Before anyone could respond, his mother appeared, her expression brightening the moment she saw him. She moved toward him with warmth, then gently held Alina's hand, as if presenting her. Adrian's gaze hardened. He demanded an explanation, but his mother simply handed him the signed document. As he read it, his jaw tightened. A waitress, living here? Close to his mother? It made no sense to him. He turned to Alina, his voice low but cutting. "What do you want?" Alina froze, her fingers trembling. She tried to explain, but her words came out soft and unsure. She wasn't here for money, she just couldn't abandon his mother. Adrian didn't believe her. Not yet. But when his mother firmly refused to let Alina go, even pulling her closer with protective insistence, something shifted. For the first time, Adrian wasn't in control, and it unsettled him more than he expected. Days passed, and the mansion slowly began to change in ways Adrian couldn't ignore. At first, he kept his distance, watching everything with quiet suspicion. Yet no matter how closely he observed, Alina gave him no reason to doubt her sincerity. She asked for nothing, kept to herself, and devoted every moment to his mother. Each morning, Adrian would catch glimpses of her in the garden, carefully guiding his mother along the pathways, their steps slow but peaceful. Sometimes they would sit together under the shade, Alina writing little notes, or attempting simple hand signs, both of them laughing softly when she made mistakes. It was a kind of warmth the house hadn't known in years. Late one evening, Adrian paused outside his mother's room. Through the slightly open door, he saw Alina reading aloud from a book, her voice gentle even though his mother couldn't hear it. Still, she followed along, her eyes bright, completely engaged. When Alina acted out a funny part, his mother burst into silent laughter, her shoulders shaking with joy. Adrian stood still, something unfamiliar tightening in his chest. He couldn't remember the last time he had seen his mother like that, alive, happy, present. For the first time, doubt crept into his assumptions. Maybe Alina wasn't pretending. Maybe her kindness was real. As he turned away, his lingered for a moment longer than usual. The walls he had built so carefully were no longer as strong as he believed, and he wasn't sure how to feel about that. The whispers began quietly, spreading through business circles and into the mansion like a slow poison. People questioned Alina's presence, twisting her kindness into something calculated and selfish. Headlines hinted at manipulation, suggesting she had charmed her way into the life of a powerful family. Adrian tried to ignore it at first, but the pressure mounted as rivals used the rumors to weaken his reputation. Alina noticed the change before anyone said a word. Staff members who once greeted her politely now avoided her gaze. Conversation stopped when she entered a room. Even the warmth she had brought into the house felt fragile, as if it could shatter at any moment. One evening, she overheard enough to understand the truth. Her presence was becoming a burden on Adrian. The thought weighed heavily on her heart. She had never wanted to cause harm, especially not to the people who had unknowingly become her family. That night, she sat beside his mother, holding her hand longer than usual. Her smile was gentle but laced with sadness. With slow, careful movements, she wrote a final note, expressing gratitude for the love she had been given. The older woman's eyes filled with confusion and silent panic, but Alina reassured her with a soft embrace. Before dawn, Alina quietly packed her things and left the mansion behind. When Adrian returned and discovered her gone, anger was his first reaction. But as he read the note she left behind, the truth struck him hard. She hadn't left for herself, she had left for him. The mansion felt emptier than ever, its silence now heavy rather than peaceful. Adrian tried to bury himself in work, convincing himself that Alina's absence shouldn't matter. But every corner of the house reminded him of her, the garden where she walked with his mother, the quiet hallway where her soft footsteps once echoed, the warmth that had somehow disappeared overnight. His mother's condition worsened. She no longer smiled the same way, her eyes constantly searching, as if waiting for someone who never returned. That was when the guilt began to settle deep within Adrian. For the first time, he allowed himself to admit the truth: he missed her. Days turned into weeks, and the feeling only grew stronger. Finally, unable to ignore it any longer, Adrian began searching for Alina. He followed every lead, visited small cafes, asked strangers, and traveled farther than he ever had for someone else. The powerful billionaire who once controlled everything now felt helpless. After months of searching, he finally found her in a quiet town cafe. She looked just as he remembered, simple, gentle, and trying to stay unnoticed. But there was a sadness in her eyes that hadn't been there before. When she saw him, shock froze her in place. She tried to remain distant, insisting she didn't belong in his world. But Adrian, standing there with nothing but honesty left, broke down in front of her. His voice trembled as he confessed everything: his regret, his mistakes, and the truth he could no longer deny, that she had become irreplaceable in his life. Alina stood in silence, her heart torn between fear and longing as Adrian's words settled deep within her. She had spent so long convincing herself that leaving was the right thing, that returning would only bring more pain. But seeing him like this, no pride, no distance, just raw honesty, broke something inside her. When she finally returned to the mansion, it no longer felt cold. The staff watched in quiet surprise, but this time Adrian stood beside her, making it clear she belonged. He no longer cared about whispers or judgment. For the first time in his life, he chose to protect something not out of duty, but out of love. His mother's reaction said everything. The moment she saw Alina, her face lit up with overwhelming joy. She reached for her, holding her tightly, tears slipping down her cheeks. The warmth that had once faded returned instantly, filling the home again. Days later, during a small gathering, Adrian did something no one expected. Standing before family and close associates, he spoke openly, his voice steady at first but soon filled with emotion. He admitted how wrong he had been, how he had misjudged the one person who brought light back into their lives. As he looked at Alina, his eyes softened, and his voice broke. Tears fell without hesitation, leaving the room in stunned silence. In that moment, Everyone understood. The shy waitress who once stood unnoticed had become the heart of it all. And this time, she would never be invisible again.